The Competitive 40K Network presents Art of War. Art of War. Strategy and tactics. Discussions with the best players on the planet. Now your host, Nick Nanavati.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Art of War 40K podcast. I'm your host, Nick Nanavati, and this week we are joined by a very, very special guest, the two-time reigning back-to-back champion, captain of France, Olivier Weiss. Olivier, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I've got some rest. Got some rest, so now I'm fine. Thank you for having me in the show.
Of course, man. Thank you for coming on, and congratulations again to you and Team France for winning what is, in my opinion, the hardest tournament in the world. Not once, but twice, back-to-back. Almost unprecedented. You've done it 7-0, which is a truly amazing finish. That is also something that never happens. And we're here to basically talk to you, Olivier, get to know your side of things as the leader, captain, teammate, all the above. Talk about the process, the preparation, then of course list compositions and all that, and ultimately how it worked and how it feels. And then of course in part two, that's for our patrons who love and support us endlessly. We're going to go game by game by game, round by round by round through the tournament. So a little bit more of a macro sense storytelling instead of one army list we're going to follow. We're going to follow the entirety of Team France. But we're going to go through the tournament and really talk about the ups and downs. If you're into Team 40K or just interested in the story of this World Championship, this episode is a must listen to. So let's hop right into it. Olivier, tell me about yourself, man. How are you feeling after this tournament?
I'm feeling so grateful to the community that carried us during the year, financed us as well, and to the team and all the teammate above the 8 player I've selected. We are a group of 30, and everyone performed, everyone worked his ass off, so that we managed to this kind of performance. So it is definitely a team effort, and I'm grateful for that. And when I mean a team, it's also a community effort. Yeah. So I'm at the moment I'm grateful. I'm also peaceful because I invested a lot in this performance, and this going well also feels right. And in every adventure, you also have your opponent or people that are opposing yourself, and this feels great that you got it right. So sometimes, even if you are right, you don't get the win. When you get the win, you do not need to explain why you were right. So.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad you're feeling grateful about it. It feels, peaceful is a great word to describe it. I don't think words can do it justice how
Absolutely
grueling this tournament is, on a mental level and on a physical level and even on an emotional level, for how much time you put into it across the year. And you end up forming a bond with all of your teammates. And especially in your case where you've been going year after year after year, that bond is solidified and very strong with many of them. So there's a lot that goes into it from a humanistic standpoint. And I think
Absolutely.
I just want to try to convey that as best as I can. This is, as much as it is just a Warhammer tournament, I don't want to play it up to be more than that. It is a very meaningful Warhammer tournament to those that attend.
Yeah, it is. To be fair, it has been buzzing for 2 days. So the short we aired from the ceremony has been viewed by 300K viewers.
Oh, that's amazing.
And our round with USA on Twitch has been viewed by 150K.
Right.
So we were on Twitch homepage. This is just unbelievable for us, and also a huge success for the community. We're not like alone. We're not like some geeks pushing toy soldiers. It's more than that now.
Right.
So.
And I think that's such an amazing point to highlight as well, right? Back in the day, it was a bunch of geeks pushing some toy soldiers in a building and getting no one's mind. No one pays attention to that. But it's not that anymore. It's really evolved. It's becoming this industry. It's becoming global, worldwide. Warhammer is growing. And like everybody's, that's an accepted fact at this point. And our competitive love for the game that is also growing alongside of it, and we're getting more and more attention, and it's becoming a bigger and bigger deal. So in that sense, you're absolutely right, Olivier. It has real world impacts as well as the emotional ones.
World impact and also individual impact. I've been receiving a lot of message DM from people saying, okay guys, you gave us the the motivation to come back to the competitive scene, to create a team. And all or some other message that feels great, like, okay, guys, I was going through a hard time, and you um, broadcasting your performance helped me through, and this is important. So it's not only about toy soldiers; it's also about like feeling together, gathered as a community, gathered as a nation, and we are not used to that as a toy soldier player, right? So
Right.
it goes way further than that now.
I love that you can put yourself outside of the shoes of just the Warhammer player and that won a really hard Warhammer tournament, but see yourself as a real ambassador for the game and the community
Yeah,
in the broader scope of the world. Even to those people who maybe don't even play Warhammer or care about the result of this tournament, but they see what it is and they see it's cool. Think esports and just wherever
absolutely.
all that can come from.
Yeah.
That's really amazing stuff, Olivier. So let's transition the conversation a little bit and talk about how you prepared for the WTC. What is French training camp like? Like, how do you get better for this tournament? How do you decide your team composition? How do you decide your starting roster when there's so many variables and so many unknowns?
Yeah. So first, there is the long race. The long race is the entire season. We know we have to maintain a sport hygiene, uh, and we have to go abroad to participate to a lot at the maximum amount of a foreign tournament. Otherwise, our game vision or meta vision is going to be very narrow, very endogamous. So we participate to Alpine first, then Pyra February, and finally the ETC. We didn't have the money to cover the expenses for more this year. Next year we'll have. So we stopped there. But this is the very first step, very important, because you allow the player to perform in front of the eye of the team and of the selectioner for the captain. And this is a very important moment. So because talents are exposed and also ideas are trained, so it helps the player you already know they are good to maintain the competitive hygiene they need, and it helps the new guys to show off. So that is the very first step. So we won EDC and Pyra February. We came third at the Alpine with a rookie, 100 like 90% rookie team. So we felt quite confident for the rest of the season. Then second step, you we had one boot camp just after just before the list submission. That is the like I would say the final sprint, the final race just before the list submission. We need to figure out what is the right meta path to not to win the event because it's not enough, but to get an edge on the pairing to try to win the event. So that is the bet moment. So what are we betting on? What are we thinking the meta is going to be? Who are we able to chase obvious choice from the opponent? Are we able to counter obvious first defender, second defender, and take them out of position or comfortable position at least? So that is the second step. And third step is the basic training. So when we have the list, finally the list, we are very specific on the analyze on when you analyze the lists. The most of the time, an experienced player. When I say an experience from WTC, it could be a veteran outside WTC, but an experience from WTC would say, "Okay, I don't understand this list. It feels bad, so it's gonna be bad. I'm entering a win in the matrix." Well, this is the common mistake we are trying to avoid in WTC, because of course, there is no reason that USA, Canada, Australia are coming all that way bringing a list that has no win into our metrics, right? That doesn't feel right. People are not dumb, or people are not masochists, and if they are bringing something, it's because they think or they know it is good. So we refuse, and when someone forgets, the rest of the team reminds him. We refuse that kind of reflex. Oh, this feels shit, and it should be bad, and we're just going to win against this list. That is very important because it's a very common mistake, and we discuss on that kind of list until we figure out what it's meant for. And when we realize it is meant for something that does not concern us, let's say it is chasing a very specific list that we decided not to take, then only then we accept to have a very good line of metrics into this list.
Can I ask some questions right here?
Yeah,
I
sure.
think this is some fascinating stuff. I've been following you the whole time. I love the way you're breaking it down step one, step two. This is how we decide our players and whatnot, what we're looking for. In regards to you don't accept like not understanding a list as meaning it's bad.
Yeah.
I think that is sage-like wisdom and definitely a common mistake that most teams are guilty of, right? If you run into your rosters are all revealed, and then you run to against a team and you have no idea what one of their lists does, it's really to assume that it's kind of just bad, they're a bad player, whatever. But obviously this is WTC, that's not what's going on. When you try to figure out what this list is trying to do and how maybe it doesn't concern you necessarily, how do you know that you're right? And what I mean by that is we've had the same thing in Team America, right? We see a French list or a Polish list or whatever, and we're like, okay, this just doesn't make sense to us. This has got to be bad, right?
Yeah.
But it's played by Poland. It can't be bad. So how we have a conversation, much like you, and we try to like get our faction experts who play that army or know about that army to talk about like what it's trying to do and what synergies are, and you know, you never really know if you're right or if you're on base, or maybe you're partly on base but partly wrong. And because you don't have that, you know, specifically, a great example is Niklas Friedchen on Demons. He's the only demon player in one of the tier one countries. He did very well this weekend. If you don't have his brain piloting that demon army, how do you really understand what
Well,
it's doing, right?
you're right. You're never sure, 100% sure, but at least, well, what I would say is I do not accept they brought something bad. So if I have something that is coherent and a story that I'm ready to believe, I accept to go to the next list. Until that, I want us to keep talking about that. So, for example, Anthony's list is bringing Vanilla from USA. He brought like Angron that we did not understood at first, and then we decided to figure out how this list is operating, and we have several ways to think that through. So, for example, first we try to figure out if the roster has enough solution against what we know we knew was going to be very dominant in the meta, like IK and CK. If it doesn't, without Anthony, it is fair to assume Anthony was one of the IK and CK player. Then we observed that Anthony had molefins. So when you don't bring strengths 18 or 16 models, if you're not chasing big things, Angron is one of them. And then we sometimes player are also giving clues in their content creation. And Anthony, even if we would have found it without that, to be fair, so don't blame Anthony, but he aired a video saying Anthony, eater of word, destroyer of knights. So at this point, this explained Angron, right? Angron with the rapid ingress and kill one or two knights, gamble the big weapon into him and allow the push of the rest of the army. Before that, so now we know at the end, or we think we know, Anthony is a big fella hunter like IK or CK, and we don't have, I would agree with my teammate if they feel okay into X metrics.
Right. Makes
Right.
perfect sense. And I love the example you gave because Anthony's World Leaders Army is one that maybe I take for granted because I've been helping him develop it and whatnot. But yeah, it's here to kill knights.
Yeah.
But that's not inherently obvious until somebody says it. And it just looks like a bad World Leaders Army until you really dig into what it's trying to do and why it's here. But of course it's Anthony on Team America. It's not a bad World Leaders Army. That makes no sense.
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Of course, Anthony is bringing a backward eater army through Atlantic to play WTC and get humiliated. That makes sense. Of course. Of course.
Yeah, exactly. And you all just get together. And this is like right after lists are revealed, or like when in the timeline for the event is this?
Well, this is right after we have a very quick analysis of the main seed one country. Not that we don't respect the other country, but if we are world champion and defending the title, we have to put the body weight on the opponent we think or we wish we are going to face.
Right. It's also a time thing, right? You can only
Absolutely.
prioritize what you can.
So that is like the minute the list air,
Yeah.
or yeah, the
That,
following.
right then, more or less.
Then we, if we understand things quite immediately, then we don't need to discuss them. But we identify the list we don't understand, and we give the player maximum time to play test against it. And then, like the week before the WTC, we don't play anymore. We are just having a meeting to have cross views on the matrix. So I'm a bit exaggerating because we are still having some games, right? But we slow down on the game. So for the first week of the training, we go and play to have maximum experience to go back to the friends and to those cross-viewed meeting. That is the why we put that in that order. And during those cross-viewed meeting, we get much faster and much clearer on the estimation and on the matrix building. Also, we recommend, or I recommended this year, that the player of the team, so the 8, do not play against each other. So they play against the rest of our pool
Mm-hmm.
for 3 reasons. First, if you play against the player list that you're not playing at WTC, you just divide by 2 your training time, right? Because once you're going to play your list against a friend, and once you're going to play the list of, like, I don't know what country it is, to train your friend. So if you play among the 8 player, the list that you're not playing at WTC, you divide by 2 your own trading. First, that's the first reason. Second reason, we most of the time, so the 8 player I select are obviously the best at the moment, like the one that are the most in shape. And because they are the best player, they also have a view that has a lot of weight. And when it has a lot of weight, sometimes it gets narrow. And if you want to have a challenge, a right challenge on the matchup you are trying to figure out if it's good or bad for you, of course, play against someone that didn't hear about your established opinion, or someone that doesn't care about your opinion, right?
Right. Question on that. Is there any concern that because your 8 best players are not playing against each other, the skill drop off between like your 15th best player versus what you're actually going to be playing against when you fight USA or Poland or Germany?
That is a fair question. First, the pool of player we have, I would say the level do not drop until the 14th player. So that is a
That's pretty deep, right?
yeah, that is an advantage the French system is giving to us. So we have a very large base. So at the end, at the top of it, we also have quite a large pool. But even deeper, because you with 14 you do not cover all the codecs. So even deeper, we do not fear that, because as long as you're playing against a player that knows his codex and what he can do, you play with him, right? So you make sure
That he's
all
making the right choices as
yeah all the
well.
decision making is shared, and you inject your own experience and your own talent into his expertise. Of course, you cannot do that with like a 100% newbie. Could not work, or would not be really efficient. But I think this is better than wasting time of your eighth player.
Right. And are you, when you're doing these practices, these weekends, is everyone always playing? Like how many games across how many days are we talking?
It's very different among the players. You have players that wants and needs to play a lot of game, and they need it to be played in a competitive way. So no rollback, no common uh, uh, piloting of the game. So that would be like Silesia, Alex. He needs to play a lot of games, so it could be 3 game in a day, because it goes very quick, right? If you make a mistake, the game ends, and then you go to the next.
Right.
And then you would have Aretas, for example, or me. We think a lot of the matchup outside the table, and we figure out a lot of things without playing. And when we need to play, we love to play it like no failure mode. And
Yeah,
it
like
very
everything works
long.
the way it's
Yeah.
supposed to work.
Yeah, and
Mhm.
it can be very long because it's a discussed game. So it can be like 5 hours or 6 hours games, maximum six. It could be like 4 to 5 hour games. So it really depends. But at the end, the investment is the same. So I would say it's a total commitment during the last month from the players.
What I
That's for
think
sure.
is so fascinating is how much more detail you put into how you practice and how you make your selections than I think any team that I'm aware of does. And not to say that no one else is putting time and thought into those decisions, but like each individual player on your team, you know their strengths, you know their weaknesses, you know the different ways they should practice and why they should practice that way. And you know the to who is your practice partner and all that detail. It's all kind of figured out already based on you've
Hmm?
thought about it. And
Yeah.
how you practice is kind of everything in this case.
It is also possible because we know each other very well. We go through the national league system, so we play each other 3 times a year against each other, and with each other 3 to 4 times on the international competition. So I would say we spend like one weekend every 2 months together. So playing against or playing with. So we
Wow.
know each other very well. Also, we have a Discord that is very active where we organize a lot of scrim against other country. During the early season, it would be like a scrim every 2 week. During the mid-season, it's also the same, but this year we organized a scream every 2 weeks with Sweden. We were having an alliance with to work through the year, and the other 2 weeks were dedicated to another team, like would be USA or Poland or Germany.
So
So
you were always getting high quality scrims in.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
That's
So
a big difference too. Because it's you were from what it sounds like, you were mostly scrimming against tier one nations the entire year through.
only, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
wow. That's a big difference maker in and of itself. You know, we were scrimming countries of all different skill levels and blooding different academy members. You know, our less experienced academy members got to play against less experienced countries. But I think overall diluted the overall practice of our team.
Mm. Yeah. So that is something we did like 2 years ago. We were spending time. to face seed 4 or seed 3 countries,
Hmm.
and we were having fun and making friends for sure. But when you are playing against prospect from seed 2 or seed 3 or seed 4, those prospect can be like seeds 5 or 6 level. So
Right.
some of them did not have, they didn't, it was their first game on TTS. So it was a lot of fun, but it also was a waste of time on the training level.
Yeah. And I think recognizing that is a huge deal as well.
Yeah, but
Interesting.
yeah, so I want to make sure everyone understand. I'm saying that in a very Frenchy, condescending way. That because it's very important to, and also for the opponent, if they get like 145 to 15, what would they
What did they
learn from
learn?
it?
Right.
Yeah. So this is why those level group are made in any sports. You would not like try to 1v1 Michael Jordan, even you or me on basketball, and he would not 1v1 you or me on Warhammer. And this just feels right. It's not about being pedantic, right?
Yeah, no, it's not an ego-based thing. It's this is literally like what you did to succeed for 2 years in a row, domination-wise. You were optimized your practice in the off season all year long, and I think that it's really easy to keep on playing Warhammer generically in the off season, but that almost doesn't matter because like the meta and all that doesn't. It's not going to be the same. But what does matter is your players staying sharp and developing the skills and being
That
great
is true.
Warhammer players, right,
So
all year long.
you develop what is the most important in my eyes is to develop a semantic that you share. So on first to discuss matchups and then to discuss pairing. For example, you discuss matchup. You do not agree, Anthony. How are you going to be able to push into this army? And he says, "Of course I push. I'm a word eater and I'm Anthony Vanilla, so I'm push." And if you do not have the right semantic to explain why you think if is staging behind a wall and if is doing the proper things to prevent the push, is just going to have a small win best case. This is central because if you do not share those words and this language, Anthony's not going to get convinced,
Right.
and he's gonna keep the win into the matrix, even if you know it's a draw, and you're gonna pair into a win, and he's gonna get a draw. And the season is meant to develop this common language that, of course, you do not have first, second, because you come from different team, different environment, different way of thinking, and without this common language, it's very hard to land on something relevant on a matrix. Same goes for pairing. This list, for example, you think this list is a blunter, so it's gonna be something useful in the pairing to draw everything, to control a carry list. But
Yeah.
on the other hand, you think you will need like a pushing list or 2 or 3 pushing lists to help to bring the win to the team. And it is not easy to explain why your list, what you are proposing as a list for the team, is going to play that role into the pairing, as well as it is very difficult to identify what is the list in the opponent roster that is going to play that role. Is it a blunter? Okay. So if we agree all that is a blunter, this column shouldn't have any high loss, or maybe one, and he's going to have to be very clear of on why it is a loss, because everyone agrees that it is a blunter. So it is investing a lot of resources into draw everyone.
Yeah.
Why would I push? And this kind of language, you have to develop it through years. So the season, but in my opinion, it's a cycle. You need 2 to 3 years to mature this language and to mature the way you will understand each other during these discussions.
If you are listening to this, it probably means you play Warhammer 40k. And if you're playing Warhammer, you know you need a lot of dice. Baron of Dice is where we get our dice from. They produce amazing different kinds of dice. We just recently got all kinds of different faction dice shipped to us, which we use on our stream games. But not only do they look really cool, but they're highly customizable. You can get different symbols, corners that are square, corners that are round, different shapes and sizes, different sided dice. It's all the rage. And they're customizable in color and design as well. They are so cool looking. Not only that, but they feel great to roll in your hands. I've never held dice that roll and feel this good. Not only that, but they are scientifically perfectly balanced. There are tons of case studies on people rolling thousands of dice and recording all the results that they get. And sometimes you might get a die that rolls just a few too many ones. We've all had to throw it out before. These dice are not like that. They are perfectly balanced to a T, thousands of rolls, perfect distribution. If you want to take your Warhammer game seriously and make sure the dice are not screwing you over, get some Baron of dice.
I love that. It's a multi-year plan. And I know we met in like 2019, I want to say. We played in the singles tournament in War Masters, and you weren't even captain of France at that point.
No.
And I could see now, retrospect, 5 years later, 6 years later, that the seeds for this began being planted, well in advance, like 2020, 2021, 2022. And now we're seeing this beautiful forest bloom of all the work you put in over year and year and year, seasons, as you put it, developing even a code language for you to communicate and think about different armies in a different sense. Like it's fascinating to me even at this level, right? Because I know Teams Warhammer like the back of my hand. Captain of Art of War. We got Team America for like a decade on the resume, but even still, I am learning stuff from how you are communicating and teaching your team how to communicate, which I think is absolutely amazing.
It is absolutely central, and it is the first thing that shocked me when I entered this game. It was that we did not have a language or words to qualify the role of a list into a roster. In rugby, in football, in basketball, you have a leader, you have a quarterback, you have a defender, you have a goalkeeper. So every player has a role on the field. Why should it be different in a roster?
Right.
It isn't. But it's just more complex, and we just had to invent it or to qualify it. And yeah, now in Team France, we understand each other on what is a blunter, what is a pusher, what is a flex, so something that can blunt, but also push in several matchup. Like would have like 3 big matchups, big wins instead of one or no, like a blunter, but as no big losses into or few big losses into it. It also qualifies how much resources or pairing resources you will need during the pairing. If you're a defender, you will need table resources. If you are an attacker, well, you will need matchup resources. If you are flex, you will need a little bit of both, or you will need nothing because you will accept a blunt. That kind of vocabulary we developed, and it's also singular to our team, and it would be singular to any team to understand each other, but it needs time and it needs also sharing.
Right. And I think every country, or at least America, does have its own nomenclature for different positions: attacker, defender, blunter, etc. But I think there's a level of fluency you have in how you speak about army lists and identifying their roles, and therefore it wouldn't make sense if the blunter was pushing, so we don't have to. So let's analyze anybody who says they'll lose to the blunting army. I think that is like a layer further that most teams at this point in Warhammer's career is not developed yet that well.
Yeah, and I'll be happy to share with everyone, because I would say like well, as I'm sharing right now.
Yeah, right. I was gonna say we're doing that.
Yeah, the better the team are, the better the performance is, and that's all I want, right?
And that's why I love you, Olivier. You're a man of the community first, and I think that is what makes it so special, and what makes it so great, and makes it so people root for France or are happy when France wins. Even I congratulate you, even though you defeated us, despite like being rivals or whatever. We are all on the same side, of course, and I think that's important to remember.
That is absolutely true. Absolutely true.
So let's just wrap it up a little bit. This has been an illuminating conversation. I really want to get into the actual rounds and how you did it that way. Let's talk about your team composition. Once the meta had all been kind of kerfluffled with Chaos Knights and Imperial Knights entering it, and Death Guard being such a dominating force, and then you guys just don't even bring it. You guys say no Knights at all, and then you have probably the most unique army lists for a few factions. You have the 80 Berserker Horde. You have one of the only bio lists in the entire roster. You
Death
have
Guard,
Death Guard. Your Death Guard was a little bit different. You had the 200 Astra Militarum body list.
Yep.
Well, how did this come up? How did you come up with all this?
Okay, so first we had to position regarding the IK and CK dominancy, and we tried to figure if it was like meta breaker or meta maker. I will define that. So meta breaker is busted enough to have no counter solution or counter codex, like Eldar would have been 2 years ago at the start of the V10. And if it is meta breaker, it's easy. You have to take it because no one's going to face it, and it's going to be a must-have in the roster. Then, if it's not meta breaker because you have solution against it, it might be good enough to be meta definer. And if it's meta definer, it means that everyone is going to equip themselves against IK or CK because they know how to blunt them on their own table, or they know how to kill them on IK or CK table. So if you are meta definer, then you can decide not to bring them. And I would say I was very surprised that a lot of countries brought both of them and at the same time brought solution on them. So in my mind, it was like completely opposite reasoning landing on those two decisions. Either you think it is meta breaker and you bring the both of them and you don't bring solution because you haven't found them. But if you have found solution against those, either you think you are the only one to find solution and you can bring your solution and the IK and CK, or I don't get it because yeah, or I don't get it. So we decided to bring solution and not IK and CK. So because we thought it would be so obvious, like everyone would equip against IK and CK, and the alternative was, okay, let's bring only a CK and offer him the table one. It was the choice of Sweden. I will wrap him up in a sentence. I've said to Sweden when we were discussing roster, I've said there's no point bringing a clue, there's no point bringing a nail into a hammer convention.
Yeah, right.
And they laughed and they answered, unless you have a diamond nail, right? And they had a diamond nail.
Right, their CK list was dominating.
Absolutely. So the CK list into an open table, that was hard to hammer. But if you bring two of them, then you know at least one of the two is going to perform outside of defending position. And at least one of the two is going to be caught by the anti-IK and CK the other team are going to bring, because of course they're going to bring anti-IK and CK solution.
Right. It's also an army that is so easy to spot, like Tex for. I mean, just take more anti-tank. It's
absolutely. Or say IK is even easier because you can also take hordes.
Hordes do it. Yeah,
have the bullets to play, right? Mm-hmm. So we decided to get solution to CK and IK, but not bring them. That was one of the latest decision because we were considering bringing one CK at some point. And for the rest of the list, we decided we think we cannot have too many sidestep in one roster. So we cannot be the original and creative on any list because it can be a too big risks.
Right.
But we allow ourselves to take 2 to 3 lists that are very high sidestep. So this berserker list, we were pretty confident because Tanker is a dominant horde player, and he felt this list was going to be an asset from the first second he read the word eater codex. So we went through several lists during the work. We of course we tried the Demonkin because it was also quite busted. We also tried something more like Jack's list, Jack, so more balanced in between shooting and fighting. And at the end, very end, when we aired the roster, we uh, figured that we were lacking heavy pusher in the among the 8 lists,
Right.
because I had to switch my list to tweak my list a bit to be able to face IK and CK. So I was originally playing Beastmaster, Beast Slayer, a list that is very close to Jesper list because we worked it together.
Mm-hmm.
We were lacking pushers, so we decided for him to go for the 80 berserkers.
Yeah.
Regarding the Astralist, it was something that we've never seen in Europe. I know some of you guys in USA have seen that perform, but it was pretty rare.
It's rare. Yeah.
And as we knew, it was a solution against Death Guard and IK, not really against CK because they have the bullet to kill hordes, but IK and Death Guard it was. And also that it was a list, very difficult list to understand only by writing it or reading it. We decided to go for it. It was the last call we made because it is a list that has risks. It has a very weird damage output.
How did
But
you even understand what that list could do? For example, on America, we have guard players. We've more than one. We've got like John Lennon plays guard, for example, and he doesn't play a 200 body variation. It's just not his style, not how he plays Warhammer. So we'd have very little data on it. None of our guard players really play in that sense. So,
well, to be
how did you
fair,
know what it was good and bad at? We wouldn't think of it as a Death Guard counter because it's just not even on our radar, really.
okay, so to be fair, we didn't know that well against what it was good and bad because we also failed against the Demonkin Word Eater and failed against the Blood Angel in the Swiss sequence. But we have a horde tradition in France. So Nicholas, that is playing this list, Petit Nico, he he had been playing my Black Templar list during the year. He also had been playing Chaos Space Marine kind of hoardy list, and he knows where he goes with those microgestion and slingshot movement that this list can do. So I would say we have a culture of practicing or thinking first or quite soon enough during the list building on about their horde possibilities. We thought that first that having that many that much speed against Death Guard, the ability to prevent Deep Strike 12 against the Death Shroud, and a high amount of OC is something that you could say just by reading the list could be like anti Death Guard. And to be fair, no Death Guard accepted him in attack.
Right.
So people
We'll
got
figure
that.
that out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what people did not really got is how the list performs, what are the mechanism of the list, and we put this list a lot of time in defense too. Once the first defender with open table is gone, and at this point, most of the roster, in our opinion, had a perfect path, like two lists to attack it and to crush it.
Right.
But we thought it was very unlikely that the opponent figure out the exact two lists that would be great into it. And it rarely happened. Rarely happened.
Yeah, right. That is fascinating. And I think there's also an element of pairings theory there. Instead of planning for the worst case, your opponent always knows the correct move. You've taken lists that are less understood, increasing the likelihood that they'll make the wrong move. And I don't want to say you're banking on it, but because you could probably afford a loss with your guard army and still win the round somewhere else. But you're making yourself vulnerable to that choice and just capitalizing even harder if they mess it up, which is likely.
Yeah. The pairing sequence is not only a mathematical equation to solve. Of course, you have in early sequence you have to go for the best case scenario for you or worst case scenario on the pairing, and it would be like I would say if you put a Votan in defense, of course you're going to be attacked by a Neldar and maybe an IK if they have an IK. So that is pretty obvious, and we at this point the worst case scenario is the scenario you have to bet on. But if you are putting a very weird list in defense too, then if you do not lose too much by doing that, the worst is never promised, right? I mean, we have a saying in French. I'm sure you have the same. So, the worst is never certain,
right?
And if there is only one path that goes through the best for the opponent, it's gonna be taken if the list is known and if it has obvious counters. But if the list is not known and no one had the time to perform against it, then you mostly gonna have draws or small wins or small lose into the opponent matrices, and you have a high possibility from getting the matchup where you have a high win written in your matrix, but the opponent thinks it's a draw.
Right.
And yeah.
Awesome. Olivier, we got to wrap it up here before we hit part two. I'm getting thirsty for it. We're going to talk about the games round by round, how you actually did the pairing cycle. We're kind of already starting to bleed into it. I love the way you've approached the team, and I can't say it enough. Seriously, congratulations, my friend, on an absolutely dominating performance and a year well done.
Thank you, Nick. It means a lot from you.
Yeah, of course. And listeners, thank you. We can't do this show without you. Appreciate you every single week tuning in. Hopefully you're enjoying these WTC episodes. We've got more where these are coming from. And if you are interested in checking out part two, where Olivier and I are going to go round by round through this tournament, 7 rounds of 40K with his amazingly analytical mind, let's go over to patreon.com/AOW40K. Subscribe. Thanks so much, everyone, and we'll see you later.
Like what you just listened to? Check out Art of War Down Under and Art of War Unbroken on the competitive 40K network. theartofwar40k.com.